Medicare Part D is not required to cover every drug. There is some common misconception in the public that every plan has to cover every drug, even though most people know that it doesn't. It has to cover some drugs, some protected classes. There's 6 protected classes in which every Part D plan, either in a Medicare Advantage or a standalone, has to cover substantially all drugs. Substantially meaning not every drug, but almost every drug. And if they don't cover it, there has to be a good reason. So there's a generic equivalent. There's some kind of FDA questioning. It's obsolete. There's got to be something weird. They have to be able to justify to CMS why they don't cover that drug. So in general, for 6 protected classes, almost every drug is covered. What are the protective classes? Cancer drugs. But again, not every single cancer drug. There's thousands of them, but almost all of them will be covered by every plan. So the cancer drugs, anticonvulsives, antidepressants, immunosuppressants, antiretrovirals. So there's 6 protected classes. Now there's thousands and thousands of other drugs, and they are not required to cover all those drugs. But there's disease classes. And it's so for a disease, they should have 2 chemically distinct, that's how the government looks at it, drugs available. So I want Humira. And they're like, no, nobody's covering Humira. Humira's gone now. There's only biosimilars and different biosimilars available from each company. My doctor said I need Humira. Probably not going to get Humira in this world anymore. That and many other drugs have shifted into less expensive, not generic, but not as expensive as brand name, biosimilars. So that's a very common question that you'll get as the year progresses is, hey, they were covering my drug, but they're not. Yeah, they can stop if it's in those parameters. So it's not one of those 6 protective classes, or if it is, there's something that came up with that drug. And if it's just our other drug, they still, even if they stop covering yours, they have at least 2 other alternatives for your disease. Now, even though I said those 6 classes, immunosuppressants, antiretrovirals, antidepressants, substantially all drugs are covered by every plan. That doesn't mean that they made it easy for you to get those drugs. So they will typically have prior authorization, step therapy, quantity limits, which are all barriers to entry, so that hopefully you'll just go, just forget about it and give me some cheaper generic. And that is something that tends to change throughout the year and cause a lot of hassle for insurance professionals when we already did the research, when we helped them enroll into the plan and told them that this is how their plan would work. And then here we are in March where now it doesn't work. So you want to get ahead of that and be telling them when you're first enrolling somebody in a drug benefit, either through a Medicare Advantage or a standalone, that this is changing. That I can't tell you for sure if any of your drugs will change their availability, their tier, their copay. But I can tell you as an industry, they are allowed to change the copay, the prior authorization, the availability of these drugs. So if you were getting 90 days and now they said, oh, only 30 days, it's a pain. People don't like that. They want to be mad. They want to be mad at someone. You don't want them mad at you. You need to protect yourself. The carriers are much more sensitive. Some carriers, more so than others, are very sensitive about any complaints to CMS, CTM. And they don't want to see any complaints. So the better you do in educating your clients up front about how this can change over time, then when it changes, they're mad. They're still mad. But they can have a conversation with you instead of calling up 1-800-Medicare and complaining and saying, Sylvia lied to me. She told me my drug was going to be covered, and now I just got a letter it's not going to be covered in 30 days. Sylvia warned me. So now they might call you and say, this is ridiculous, but you warned me. I appreciate that. Now let's work and see if there's a solution. So Part D is a shifting sands. And with Trump RX now in the mix, who knows what's going to happen. Mark Cuban seems to be a really big disruptor to this industry. And I don't know if you're following very much, but the pharmacy benefit managers, the PBMs that price the drugs and get all the rebates, the guys that are just running away with the money in this ecosystem, there's been legislation in different states and it's progressing at different rates to get rid of that guy, that middle guy. There looks like there's some cracking of the clouds here. I think Cigna, a couple of them have announced that they're going to try to make some of their drugs available directly and bypass the PBMs. Now, most of the insurance companies own their own PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers. So it's a, you know what I'm saying. It benefits them to have this tier in here. We are just the messenger, and we have to make sure we do a good job of getting our message out. Because when people get ready to retire, they assume all their drugs are covered. They've been covered their whole life on their employer health plan. Employer health plans typically have had a richer drug benefit than Medicare has, specifically when it comes to weight loss drugs. Most commercial health plans have covered weight loss drugs these last few years, which have been revolutionary in the introduction of different weight loss drugs. And because most commercial plans did cover the weight loss drugs, their prices skyrocketed. They had their highest rate increase in a decade, almost exclusively because of covering these weight loss drugs. And now we found a lot of them are no longer going to cover the weight loss drugs going into this year, which would make it easier for you when they come to you on Medicare if they don't assume that their plan is going to cover their drugs. Now, there's so much at play right now with the weight loss drugs. The negotiated drugs, the 10 negotiated drugs through the Inflation Reduction Act, they've already named what those drugs will be for 2027, and the first one on the list was Ozempic. Ozempic's already like a late drug. There's been so many other advances in weight loss that you don't really want Ozempic anymore. You're gonna want the newer ones with less side effects and better weight loss, which is, I think the best one right now is retatrutide, something like that. So Ozempic looks like it will be brought down because of the Inflation Reduction Act in January. But before January, here in 2026, we are all sitting around twiddling our thumbs. I haven't done that in a while. Waiting to see what Trump RX does. What it's promised to do is drive down the cost for people on Medicare and Medicaid. So it's not helping those people on employer group health plans that no longer have it covered. But our clients on Medicare and Medicaid have been promised a copay of $50. And Lilly got on board, and I think Novo Nordisk got on board with President Trump and said, we're going to bring this down, and it'll be direct through the Trump RX website. So we are flooded, you probably are too, with questions, comments, emails from our clients going, when does it go down? This is expensive. Trust me, when it goes down, it'll be all over the news. All we know is what the news tells us, that it is in negotiation and it should be coming to fruition soon. So just remind your clients that have a Part D drug plan that what they enrolled in was accurate when they enrolled. You have no control over how it will transpire over a calendar year. A lot of people, unfortunately, the first quarter of the year is the ugly quarter, where the people that they didn't change their drug plan because they were happy with their drug plan. That's when they find out, they probably should have changed their drug plan. And now the hard news is you can't change your drug plan unless you have a special exception. You can't change it until next fall. You don't want your clients mad at you because you weren't able to change all their drug plans. In most instances, people had no ability to change every drug plan they had on the books unless the client specifically reached out to them. Most agents stopped doing drug plans completely because there was no compensation, and they sent everyone to Medicare.gov. A conscientious agent would have explained that to their clients and give them a heads up. But a lot of people have just been used to, you call them and like, yeah, we're having a big, one plan's going down or one plan's exiting. So, and this year you didn't have time, or you had good intentions, but you couldn't get to everyone. So you could see some complaints coming in because people will find out when they go to the pharmacy in January, that their plan just went up $50 a month. That was the most it could go up by law, $50 per month. So the extra $600 they're going to spend for someone that doesn't take any drugs or only takes generic drugs or doesn't use their plan because their drugs are cheaper with cash, you can see them being very mad and blaming you for not telling them. So I want you to spend the whole rest of this year, every new client that ages in, making it clear how all this Part D shakes out. Because when you just glance over it and go, give me your list of drugs and here, and this plan's cheapest, and you just keep moving on, and you don't go into this detail, this is where you get complaints to Medicare because they're mad when things change, and we see a lot of change in Part D, unfortunately. If you have specific situations you'd love to share with us, I would like to hear it. Put them in the comments below. If you have more questions, if you're a new agent and I glanced over some of the things that you're more interested in, please ask me again or ask your marketer. If you don't follow us, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit the follow button. Thanks for watching.